Yo guys, Maddie here. What is going on? I thought I'd make a video on why most newbie NFT flippers get wrecked. And I thought I'd go through about 4 to 5 different points. Might help your NFT investing game, short term, long term. So, there's a bunch of different things we got to look for, right? And once you've been in the space for a good amount of time, like 1 or 2 years, you start to see the natural pattern of things. The nature of NFTs is kind of like traditional investing. You're investing in a company in the early stages. NFTs sort of represent whether they be avatars or lands or whatever they may be. If it's the first drop of that NFT project, then it basically represents the equity into that project in the sense of the better the project does, the more the NFTs will be valued. That's just how it is. Like Bored Ape is a perfect example. Some other ones that haven't done too well is a perfect example. Like if the team doesn't deliver, then the prices drop. So what you're looking at here is basically a graph of the general kind of hype cycle of NFTs. And this is sort of what happens on really, like this is kind of like the pump and dump thing that happens in the NFT space. But I pull this up because I wanted to just talk about a few points. One, again, the life cycle of an NFT project on day one, when it's mint day, is probably usually it's the most riskiest time to invest in an NFT project, because on mint day, you don't know, one, what they even look like. Two, it's probably the first NFTs the project has dropped. You don't really know the founders. You don't really know the community. The community hasn't even formed yet. You don't even know who's buying. You don't even know what the future plans are. Rarely do you know the roadmap. So the riskiest time is at the start. And that's why, if you have only $1,000 to put into the NFT space and you put it all at the start, you're basically, it's kind of like putting it all on black. You're risking a big portion of those funds. You're risking it at its basically the time where it's you're prone to lose the most money, where people have historically lost the most money. So you want to somehow minimize that risk. So you don't have to buy at the start, although it's cheaper, it's the cheapest, but you don't have to look for the cheapest thing and look for 100x, right? So anyway, let's keep going. So what normally happens is early investors or traders, they sort of accumulate really, really cheap. So this is the sort of like the Twitter influencer strategy. They accumulate really, really cheap. It might be a really shit project. They get in at a pre-sale, and then they use their Twitter social reach to push it. They sell, and then suddenly the Twitter awareness drops off, and then the price sort of goes stagnant, and either the project keeps building and that project builds momentum again, or it just sort of dies into a slow death and people forget about it. So you got a lot of newbie flippers. What they do is, they hear about something on Twitter or YouTube or something. That's usually at the peak of this, because everyone's sort of pushing it on Twitter or YouTube. But what you normally find, and this has happened literally every single time, is that the Twitter hype dies down, and with the Twitter hype, when it dies down, so does the interest, and when the interest dies down, so do the prices. So I think a lot of newbie flippers, they buy at a time where it's really loud and everyone's sort of screaming it out. The best time to buy is sort of around here, when you are, you've heard it in Discord, you've done a bit of research, you think it's a great project. You don't have to, it's got nothing to do with Twitter influence, but you think it's going to have a good trajectory because of you've been able to assess it at a certain time. So let's look at mutant apes, right? This is an interesting one. So it was pretty much, it wasn't a free airdrop, but it was a claim for Bored Ape Yacht Club. So, all right, say you missed the claim and you had nothing to do with Bored Apes. You could have just watched it, let it go, just sort of waited. And a lot of projects follow this trajectory where there's a lot of volume at the start and then people just forget about it because they don't really know where it stands in the NFT space. You could have just followed it and been like, all right, well, it looks like there's consistent sales going on. You see the number of sales at the bottom, there's consistent sales going on. The average price is holding up. It's dropped from its all-time high, or it's dropped from the start. It looks like Bored Apes are continuing to develop, and maybe there's some more clarity as to what's going on here. And you can buy it here, or even if you miss this peak, that's fine. It's going to drop again, and then maybe you can buy it here. But there's multiple times in the life cycle of a project where you can assess what's going on, and make a better entry. Maybe you couldn't buy it for 2 ETH. You end up buying it for 4.5 or 5 ETH, and that's okay. Again, a 10x it doesn't matter. You don't have to get a 10 or 20x all the time. You don't have to buy an NFT at the cheapest possible price. You just have to buy it at a price that appreciates. And the more guarantee there is that it will appreciate, I mean, there's no guarantees in life, but the more chance there is of appreciating based on analyzing the team, the way that they roll things out, the sentiment, all that sort of stuff. And now Mutant Ape Yacht Club has 12,300 owners out of 18,500 items, which is quite a lot. It's like 66 to 70% distribution. The 70% people have at least one Mutant Ape Yacht Club, or maximum of one Mutant Ape Yacht Club. And so I also look at things like I said, distribution, and also the holder base. So if you go here, you can see who's holding and who the largest whales are, and you can kind of analyze that. So all right, you got Dingaling, he's pretty much never sold anything before, so I mean, he's got 98, but most likely he'll hold it. This guy's got 106. Do not know who that is. Jimmy's got 86 of these. JRNY Club has got 51. I don't think Jimmy's sold many at all, if any. JRNY also hasn't sold many. So you can see, like, these are people that would probably hold. Maybe you've got someone who flips very often, and you can be like, oh, well, at some stage he's going to just dump a lot, and they'll put a lot of sell pressure. And, you know, if you look at some other projects, you'll find, like, these numbers are 300, 200, 500. You know, there's some really big numbers over here, and in time what happens is those same people will slowly offload, and that's what puts sell pressure on. So you can analyze this as well, but I think like, if you flip, you have to sort of be aware of the risks. And again, like, if you only have $1,000, or you have a very small budget, and you put it all into one thing right at the start, most likely, probably 9 times out of 10, you're not going to do too well. Because remember, like, out of the project that you see that goes on to be successful, there's probably like another 200 that have failed, right? So there's that. And you also have to look at this really interesting thing where you can actually see how many people have it listed for sale. So if you click buy now on the Mutant Ape Yacht Clubs, you can see that there is 4, 8, 12. There's about 12 that need to be sold that will get this floor up to a 24 ETH price, which means it's a 0.65 ETH profit. Just let's pretend there's no fees in this, so that means it's 0.65 ETH profit. Then you go to activity, and you can kind of see, all right, well, how many are selling per day? It looks like 45 to 51 are selling per day. So you know, does it have the momentum to sell 24 to get to 24 ETH? It seems like it will, or it does, in the next few days at the very least, because you have to remember, people also list more for sale in time. So another thing you can do is just go to maybe go to activity, and you go to listings, take out sales, and then you can count the number of listings. I mean, unfortunately, you have to do this manually. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So how many are floor price listings though? So maybe you have to count the floor price listing. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a 7. 7, 7, 7. What else you got? Anything in the 24? 7, 8. So there's 8. Let's just say that was in a 1 hour or 2 hour period. So 1 hour here and all the minutes. So you times that by 12. 12 times 8 is 96. So it's about between 80 to 100 listed at floor price every single day. So you can look at these numbers and say, all right, well, if that sort of thing continues, and then it'll probably take about, you know, 4 to 10 days for the floor price to slowly increase at a price that you're profitable for. So there's some metrics you can look at to assess the momentum. There's another one over here. So in a probably a not so good case, you got bulls on the block. Nothing against bulls on the block, but currently they're not doing too well in the volume. So like, they're not even seeing the sale in a single day. The last sale was 3 days ago at 0.06. So I mean, if you take a pretty big position in here, like, there has to be a lot of volume to be, like, if you buy 50 of these to sell, you're not even going to be able to sell. You're likely not going to be able to sell even one a day, right? So it's a very high risk of losing your money, because there's no liquidity, there's no buying and selling happening in the market. You want to see something like gutter juice. So this is something that you would have gotten if you, I believe, were in the gutter cat gang. And look at this. You got a sale every 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 9 minutes, 12 minutes. So maximum every 5 to 10 minutes there's a sale. So again, you can assess, maybe you missed a pre-sale again, right? Maybe you missed a pre-sale, but you can keep looking at it and you can be like, all right, well, there's literally 200, 300 sales happening every day. If this trend continues, it might be pretty good. So you'll buy a few, right? And then you'll assess the project. You look at the number of owners. Maybe you'll click on, all right, who are the dominant owners again, and you do the holder list checkup. So I think a lot of newbie NFT flippers, they don't look at all these metrics and they sort of go all in, or like they take some really big risky bets at the start where a lot of projects don't end up working out. In my opinion, do that, that's fine, but have different allocation strategies. So for example, if you have $3,000, maybe allocate $1,000 to 4 to 5 different projects where you are going sort of at the very early stage. Maybe the next $1,000 you allocate to something where you wait a little bit, you reassess, and then you buy, right? Because look, if you look at Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and you look at activity, then you would have had so much time to figure out whether this is going to do good or not. So, I mean, all right, say you missed the mint day at 0.08 ETH. I mean, that's fine, because maybe you bought it over here at 7.4, or maybe you bought it over here at 4.7, or maybe you bought it over here at 0.6. Like, if it hit 100 ETH today, would you have cared whether you spent 0.08 ETH or 4 ETH or 7 ETH? No, it's still a 90 plus ETH profit. It's huge, right? So there is, like, you don't have to buy at the start. I think that's an issue that many newbie people just take the massive risk and go right at the start. And that's fine, but have an allocation strategy. So again, allocate $1,000 to the high risk projects, but maybe don't go all in on one, maybe 5 to 6 different ones. Allocate, the next $1,000 or $2,000. And you can probably spend a bit more on strategies that are a bit more safer, because even if something like this 2 to 3x's, you're still making money, right? If you 2 to 3x on something like 2 to 3 ETH, I mean, that's 6 to 7 ETH. That's what's that? 15,000 USD. That's a ton of money. So, wait a little bit. Maybe the next allocation you do in the second, maybe the third allocation strategy, what you do is you look for something even more safer. So maybe you look at something that you really believe in. You're like, nah, there's definitely something that's going to keep going on here. Artifact Studio. I'm pretty deep into Artifact Studio. Oops, not the monoliths. Where are we? The Clonexes, and they're at 15 ETH at the moment, and I'm like, you know what, I'm pretty confident they're going to go to at least 30 ETH. There's less risk there because they've been around for a while. That there's a Nike network behind them, that they've done really well. The team has delivered over the last year. So I'm not just talking about Clonex, just talking about any other projects that's done similar things where you've got a lot of trust in them and prices look decent. So anyway, I can keep going on for a very long time, but just wanted to touch upon a few points onto why some newbies probably get wrecked. Is they just don't have a proper risk to reward allocation strategies. Like putting everything, VCs and angel investors and people that have been in the investing world for a long time, they do take big risks, but they have a large amount of other capital in lower risk investments where if the big risk ones turn to crap, the other ones will make up for it. If the low risk ones do really well, they may not make a lot of money, but that $1 million that they put may only 2x, and maybe it only goes to $2 million, but because they put more money in there, they've still made a bunch of money, even if it's 2x. They'll take that $1 million, they'll split it into, they'll take 250K worth of really high risk bets again, and they'll split that 750K across other medium to low risk investments. So, and they keep playing with this, right? So this is how they get wealthy. And this is, I think, something that people need to adopt, especially a lot of people participating in the NFT space are new investors. And, portfolio allocation, risk to reward, assessing markets are sort of new to many people. So hopefully this sheds some light and provided a bit of clarity.